and we will shortly get started. But today it's a very interesting case that we will be talking about. It's not really a case per se, but it's all about the latest. Uh, okay, no, it is really a case because it's a legal case that's been going on. It's a case that Visa and Mastercard have been fighting against merchants in the US. And it's very interesting because I think in India we've done a lot of things right to have prevented such an antitrust case from coming up. So just thought I will have that quick conversation around this. All right, so let's get started then. Nowadays, tapping, swiping, clicking away on your cards and making everyday payments is like a big breeze, right? But while it may not cost you or me anything, somebody somewhere is footing the bill for processing those seamless transactions on our cards. And most often than not, it is those small kirana stores and retail shopkeepers and business owners who end up footing this bill, which, according to a report by Nielsen, merchants in the US paid around $172 billion in order to process card transactions worth $11.2 trillion last year. This was in the year of 2023. So that comes up to roughly about 1.56 percentage of the total order value, the total transaction value that was processed just through cards. And get this, 79% of that, uh, that entire 1.56 percentage that's coming out, 79% out of that goes to just the card networks. And in the US, because card networks have a duopoly, that kind of means most of that goes to Visa and MasterCard. Now, this is a very high amount for small merchants in the US, which is why they've been fighting a case for a very long time. It's going to be nearly 2 decades now, in order to bring down these swipe fees or these card processing fees that the card networks charge them. And just last week, Visa and MasterCard agreed to settle. So, hello and welcome to everybody who's joining me today. I am your host, Kamalika, and I also go by the pen name The Fintech Chronicler. And today we're going to be discussing about this small victory that small businesses have been waiting for 20 years now, and what it really means for cardholders like you and me. We will start off by having an overview of what this judgment was all about, what this entire case was all about. Then we'll talk about how the credit card network works. We'll make a segue into how Visa and MasterCard make their money. And finally, end with the long term implications that this ruling could possibly have. Now, if you're joining me through the LinkedIn live feed, the audio feed, then I would love for you guys to also come up on stage and share your views. It needn't just be something that's agreeing with me. If you have a different take, I would love to take that conversation up, because I think that's where the best ideas come, right? When two people have two opposing thoughts and ideas around the same topic. So, with that said, I think let's get started with our discussion. So, in 2005, merchants in the US filed a lawsuit against the two card networks, the two predominant card networks in the US, MasterCard and Visa, and the financial institutions that issue these credit cards as well. So, these are typically your banks, the big banks that issue your credit cards. The lawsuit alleged that merchants paid excessive fees to accept Visa and MasterCard credit cards, and that Visa and MasterCard and the issuing banks were in violation of the antitrust laws that were laid down in the country. Now, just last week, the duo, Visa and MasterCard, have agreed to settle, and the tune of the settlement is $30 billion. But this $30 billion is going to be spread over a period of 5 years. In addition, some of the other things that Visa and MasterCard have agreed to as a part of this ruling is that they will, of course, reduce the swipe fees. But how much are they reducing the swipe fees by? They're just going to be reducing it by 0.04% in the first 3 years. And then over the next 5 years, it's going to be reducing another 0.7%. That's it. They're capping it at that level. Now, currently in the US, while in India, we've already had like a lot of these capping and all of that. In the US, credit card transactions can start at 2.5%, And for some of the high end cards that Visa and MasterCard have issued with a lot of these banks, it can even go up to 3.8%. So that is a very huge amount. In fact, there was this very beautiful study by Frontline, which was also published on YouTube. I think I will link it down below in the chat window sometime later, where they surveyed a bunch of small merchants, and they found that some of these merchants, the costs that they were incurring on just processing these credit card transactions, for some of them it even was more than the cost that they were paying for their establishment's rent. Now, can you imagine that? That was, for most merchants, it was like the second highest line item that was there. But for some very small merchants who needed like a very small place, so probably paid very low rents as well, the number one cost item for them was card processing fees. And we've been going through this entire phase, where there's been everyone's predicting that there's going to be a downturn in the economy and interest rates are going up and all of that. So every penny counts, right, for these shopkeepers. So that's where I think this entire antitrust case settlement became a lot more, it gathered a lot more media attention, because this is going to really, really help the smaller merchants over there. But one thing that we should know about these network fees, while yes, most of these card networks do set the network fees that's there, a big chunk of this entire merchant discount rate that is charged to the merchant actually goes to the issuing banks, and some portion of it also goes to the POS, or the point of sale device, the instrument that's been issued to them by some fintech company. So it's not really just the switching fees that these network costs, but there are a bunch of other factors also. And typically, if you see these merchant discount rates, they vary on some, like, the type of merchant as well. So, like for example, if you are a merchant that's dealing with international transactional goods, then your merchant type, which is an international transaction, will attract a higher interchange fees over there. If you are a merchant that accepts card present or card not present sort of transactions, then your interchange will also vary. And of course, it also varies by the type of the card. So the more premium a card, the higher the merchant discount rate also would be. Now, so as a part of this settlement, on the premium card path especially, what the court has ruled is that, because the merchants can charge an excess fee for these high end premium cards. And this is known as a surcharge basically. And the other thing is that previously, if you were accepting Visa Mastercard payments, you could not direct customers to any other uh, modes of transaction which were charging lesser for the customer. But that is also something that the court has said that no, now Visa and Mastercard will have to allow their merchants to do that as well. So these are some of the broad points. I really don't think we should be fixated on the 30 billion amount, because A, it's over a period of 5 years. B, uh, after 5 years, there's no clarity. So I'm assuming after 5 years, by 2029, and we may revisit this 5 years later, but I'm pretty sure that Visa and MasterCard will slowly, gradually start raising their network fees again after that 5 years period is gone. So really, that 30 billion is not what I would fixate upon. But so was so like the bigger reason is that, why is it that Visa and Mastercard agreed to settle? The amount 30 billion is, it's really like a drop in the ocean for the hundreds. Like, so for example, last quarter, the revenue that Visa made, I went through the financial reports of Visa. I did not go through Mastercard. I honestly, I could not find the time, unfortunately. But they made 400 billion. So 30 billion split between the two of them, it's a drop in the ocean. And by the way, they're setting aside a third of that 30 billion, about 10 billion, on educating merchants on the benefits of these cards, that is there for the merchants as well, not just for their end customers, but for merchants as well. There are a few benefits that merchants can also get by being on these card networks. So really, this settlement, why did they agree to settle? It's not really out of the goodness of their hearts, or to offer small merchants generosity that Visa and Mastercard agreed to settle, right? I think the real reason that they wanted to settle was probably because of the upcoming bill that, let me see if I can remember, Senator Durbin, yes, Senator Durbin, he has proposed to table a bill in the US Parliament, which is to promote competition within the card networks in the US. Now this is literally, the bill is literally called the Credit Card Competition Act. And the reason why these credit card companies are opposing this act is because, well, let's take India's example, right? The Indian government, in my opinion, has done everything right, which is what now Americans are trying to catch up with and do. First, they have kind of capped most of these interchange fees that are there. So it's not like, the card networks can just come in and set up arbitrarily high MDRs over there for their merchants. Second, they've introduced a lot of competition in the credit card market. So I was just doing a study recently and I found that already in India, 14% of the card market is now controlled by Rupay, which is issued by NPCI. Whereas if you go into the US, 90% of the market is just between Visa and Mastercard. Mastercard has about 51% and Visa has about 42% or something like that. So 90 plus percent of the market is already with Visa and Mastercard, which means that it's a duopoly over there, and they have the rights to set charges, set whatever rates they want, because that's how platforms work out, right? You're accepted everywhere. There are customers who have these Visa and Mastercard cards, and they want to use, and they're proud of using these Visa Mastercard cards. So at the checkout point, really, the end customer does not, I mean, the merchant does not really have much of an option but to accept these card payments options over there. Or there are times when people have also walked out of stores because they didn't accept cards over there. So I mean, I'll just take a quick pause over there to just see if any one of you agree with me on that point, that in India we've kind of done a good job or a good enough job of all of this. Just taking a quick pause to see if anyone else has any other uh, observations that they would want to add to this as well. All right. If you do, then I would suggest that you just raise your hand. And I see my good friend Abhishek down there. So yes, if any of you have any observations or points that you would want to make, then do raise your hand. I think it's at the bottom right corner. And yep, all right. So we do have Sarah and Nilesh up with us. Um, I have just got you guys up on stage. Sarah, why don't we get started with you? Because I always love interacting with other women in finance. So, Sarah, please feel free to unmic yourself. Do give us a brief introduction about yourself and also let us know what you think of this.
Hi, Kamalika.
Hi,
I'm
Sarah.
not from. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. How about you?
I'm doing great. I'm not from India. I'm from Pakistan. I
Oh,
really
awesome.
liked the uh, podcast, or what do you say, the interaction that you were having. So I just started it. I just, wanted to get into and
I'm
also share
so
my
glad. I'm so glad that you did come, and I would love to hear about how things are at, the entire credit card ecosystem in Pakistan, and more specifically, what you think of this entire ruling that's come out in the US.
Yeah, so I was also really excited to know that they have also come up to actually sort of retain and sort of not let these two big uh, payment platforms monopolize.
Yeah.
So it was good that way. Also, as you were saying, I was quite it was quite good to learn that in India also local payment platform Rupay is managing 14%. You said,
Yep, yep. So the cards in
yeah.
force of Rupee is now at. So the data that I was seeing was from Jan. I don't have the last 2 months issuance, But yes, 14% of the active cards are Rupee, so that's huge.
That's yeah, that it's a good number. So likewise in Pakistan also, 2 years, a year back, if I don't, a year or a year and a half back, State Bank of Pakistan had also made that ruling that they also capped the MDR rates for for all the merchants.
Hmm.
So that is also initially in because of I think the infrastructural requirements, and right now Pakistan in acceptance side is an emerging market.
Uh-huh.
So the banks were really the banks officials were really were not in favor of that decision, because right now we're in an emerging phase, and the infrastructural requirement is quite expensive. So
Yeah,
obviously they did not like it initially, but now I feel it was a quite well timed
I
decision
know. I
that
agree.
after 4 or 5 years there's going to be and also they want a local payment scheme, which is one link. They want it to be used more uh, for the payment settlement for rather than international payment scheme, so that the
Hmm.
international foreign currency ratios, and doesn't really affect the whole economy
Oh yeah.
of Pakistan that much. So it was. I feel it's quite instrumental, and this decision could have been done by US quite earlier, but better late than never.
I know.
So yeah,
Completely agree. I completely agree. In fact, I think this is one instance, where I think, especially because India and Pakistan have both been viewed as emerging economies, we knew that for
yeah,
us to grow, we'll have to make sure that bottom of the pyramid, not just the top tier merchants, are served well as well through any of these new payment mechanisms, which is why probably we had these cappings, or our policymakers even thought of cappings in the first place. But I'm so glad, Sarah, that you did join us, and I would love for us to stay connected and kind of exchange more ideas like this in the future as well. But for now, I would like to move on to a
thank you,
good. Yes, thank you so much, Sarah. But I would love to
thank
move on to Nilesh. Nilesh, I think this is like the second or third time that we're interacting. I don't know, but welcome, Nilesh. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. You tell, how are you, Kamalika?
I'm great, Nilesh. Nilesh, for the benefit of others over here, please do give us a brief introduction about yourself, and then we'll move on to what you think of the topic.
So basically, I'm a business consultant. I help startups to grow, and I'm working in India and working in US as well. So I'm handling my family business. कह सकते हैं कि बहुत सारे काम कर रहा है. So that's a small intro about me, and especially Kamalika, what I really love about this event, I was listening, like your research, the way you have researched about a particular thing, like Rupee having a 14% in India, and specifically in US, like there is like between Mastercard and Visa card, they're having 90%.
I know, right?
Research on that. So that's really like, because most of the events I have seen, like the people are talking about something, but they don't have deep insight about the same. You have that figures, like वो बोलते हैं ना debate वाले competition में.
And then I certainly have to go back and thank my school teachers, क्योंकि इतना detailing attention to detail तो I learnt only from my teachers. No, but over to you. But because you do work in the US as well, and I'm pretty sure you have a credit card too. What do you think of this?
Okay, so I feel like it's obviously like if we talk about like as you were talking about school studies and all, there like we have talked about like when there is only a single player, only a two players in the market can be disrupt in coming time.
Yeah.
So good decision. On the same hand, It's depend upon like how the time, because see, like if I personally talk about, might be this statement can hurt some of us, but believe me, US has grown like, even if we are in India in 2024, US economy has grown 20 years.
Yeah.
Like if we really want to reach to their heights, we really need to go 20-25 years of height,
Hmm.
because we are talking about startups and all, and people started talking about in 2004 3, they are making billions of dollars. So, what really matters is, we really need to see the results in the coming time. What are the things this companies actually do?
Yeah.
How this competition goes up? Like for example, अभी हम इंडिया में आईपीएल का कंपटीशन देखें. I know
हाँ.
this is out of the topic, but see that अब डिज्नी हॉटस्टार को भी पड़ा है कि आईपीएल कैसे दिखाना है. जियो सिनेमा को भी है कि आईपीएल कैसे दिखाना. And there are so many apps coming up by saying like we are offering free IPL, but
True.
people are shifting to the other platforms. So this can be the scenarios, yeah.
No, absolutely. In fact, on the topic of competition, and I love that you brought up IPL, क्योंकि after a thing like IPL came up, India में ना, the entire concept of having sports as an alternate career. We saw so many sports league come up. There are actual legitimate sports manager jobs that are coming up nowadays, which didn't exist, 10 years, 20 years back at all. So I think this entire the competition act on credit cards, that's uh, going to be released by Durbin, I think by June, um, or was it May? I'm not able to remember the exact dates, but yes, they're going to table the draft pretty soon. We're going to see a lot more, good benefits coming out of this. I think that's one thing that everyone kind of misses when they keep saying that, oh, this entire ruling, it's going to affect credit card reward programs and all of that. But the minute you have more competition, issuers and networks are going to be forced into thinking competitively as well. So thank you so much, Nilesh, for bringing up that point. Really great insight. Huh?
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Yeah.
All right, with that, I'm so glad that we have Amit Nayak with us, because last time also we had a very interesting discussion with Amit ji. So Amit, hi, welcome. How are you doing?
Yeah, very fine. How are you, Kamalika?
I'm
This is Amit here.
great. I'm great, Amit. So good to hear you again.
I have a one particular question.
Yes,
See,
sir.
the thing is that we have a in United Arab Emirates we have a trade in rupee related trade, right?
Hmm.
Similarly, UPI, which is much popular in India, we have a joint venture with, I suppose, Singapore and Sri
Yep.
Lanka.
Yep.
So the thing is that Rupay platform for the credit debit card is being developed by NPCI in association with the RBI. So can we make it popular outside India, the Rupay credit card? Because Visa and Mastercard, we already have a Visa and Mastercard credit debit card. But if we want to popularize Rupay platform outside India, can we do that? And if possible, how? Like,
Very interesting question. And this is making me think a little. I'm just trying to think from a global market perspective and not letting my patriotism kind of taint that answer. The real question is there a need for another card network? Because building a card network means that internationally you'll have to get all of the merchants to start accepting the cards. You'll also have to start getting now Indian population, luckily from the issuance side, that won't be that much of a problem, because Indian population is kind of present almost, we're the biggest exporter of talent outside, so our population is kind of present, diversified everywhere, and most of them remit money back home. So presumably, I'm assuming they also have like a NRE NRO account with India. So issuing a card won't be a problem, but the usage, the merchant acceptance side of it, Rupee will need to do a lot of groundwork to kind of get merchants abroad to start accepting this card, for which they will have to fund a lot of marketing campaigns and, give them a huge, uh, let's call it what it is, but they'll have to give them rewards on these MDRs and all the transaction processing that they do. That also means that a lot of local merchants especially will probably not be with one of the nationalized foreign banks that are there. They will be with regional foreign banks over there. So then Rupee will also have to spend that much of the infrastructure cost in setting up a, an entire transaction processing system with each of these people and making sure that they're able to talk with them. I just think at this point in time, while the solution is pretty easy to build, it's not too hard, it's been done before. I just don't see the value add in there, neither for the merchants and definitely not for the Indian government to be spending so much on it.
Okay. Okay. But do you think that it would increase the trade in the rupee, in INR Indian rupee?
Hmm. I'll have to do a little more research on this before I answer that. I'm not sure.
Okay. Kamalika, I just want to also add to this question. Hi,
Yes.
Amit.
Yes,
Yeah,
Sarah.
hello, Sarah. I'm a senior product manager in one of the leading Pakistani bank. So to answer you, there are Visa, first of all, Visa and Master and American Express, which is the, these payment platforms are not governed by any government. So
True.
that, and they're also a private entity. So that is also one of the reason why, and also they have had a huge history of developing the whole infrastructure they have now, after years of and 100 years of history. So I believe for any new entrant, I agree with Kamalika. They need to also think about the value they are getting out of the whole investment they would have to put in to
Yeah.
become a third or fourth independent platform.
True.
So for that reason, and also it is, you know, is Rupee government owned
Sort of, yes,
payment
yes,
platform?
Sarah, yes. So it's actually
Just
owned
like,
by the Reserve Bank of India, and
yeah,
yeah,
just like
so
Pakistan one link. So
yes,
one link cannot also at this point in time go in international market like that.
yeah,
They if they want their cards to be accepted elsewhere in other than Pakistan, they need to co-brand their cards with other international
exactly,
payment keys.
exactly. And I think it's a little
But
bit
Union Pay is doing it. Union Pay is able to do it. China has able to do it. So it's not impossible. It is possible,
correct.
but obviously it requires a lot of investment and
No, absolutely agreed. I mean, at this point, I'm just not sure it makes sense to do that.
Thank you.
So that now brings me to kind of the last part of this, which is about why is it that everybody that you talk to about this entire Visa Mastercard settlement has only one thing to say, which is that this is going to impact our reward programs. So, a little bit of history about reward programs. Um, Essentially, most of these credit cards they offer a lot of free goodies, right? You get rewards for any purchases that you make. You get lounge accesses for free. My God, don't remind me of lounge accesses in India nowadays. It feels like the it literally. I'm not even kidding. It feels like as if I walked into the railway ka waiting room. That's how crowded lounges are these days, thanks to these credit card programs all offering them. And there are times when these high-end credit cards they also give you like free upgrades, free flight tickets, and all of that. So it literally feels like it's free money, but it's not free money. So there was this very interesting research, and I will uh, you know what I've been quoting so many of these numbers. I really hope someone holds me accountable and tells me, Kamalika, share a list of all of these links. I'll do that in the comments soon after. But yes, there was this very interesting study that was done by a professor from Kellogg University, and he said that the money for all of these reward programs was actually being cross subsidized by American. So this was an American study, of course. So most of the American revolvers, and I'll come to the concept of revolvers in just a minute, but most of these revolvers were the ones who were funding the reward programs for the transactors. So now revolvers and transactors are like two types of credit card users. Transactors are basically the customers who transact on their credit card, and when their bill date is due for their credit card, they clear out the entire bill amount that is there. They do not carry forward their credit balances to the next cycle. So they clear all of their dues in that for that particular cycle within that cycle itself. Whereas revolvers are typically the kind of customers who pay above the minimum amount that is due for them to pay, but not the complete amount. So they carry forward some of their outstanding amount into their next cycle. Now, there's a third type of customers, which is known as defaulters. So these are the people who have not even been able to pay their minimum amount due on their credit cards. So typically, if you see any credit card statement, you'll have a total amount due for that particular cycle. 5% of that is your minimum amount due. So if you pay anywhere between that 5% and your total amount, then you are known as a revolver. And if you pay the entire 100%, you're a transactor. And if you pay less than 5%, you are known as a defaulter. Now, the thing with revolvers is that whatever outstanding balance that you are carrying forward to the next cycle, the interest that you will be charged for it, not from the day on which your cycle ended, by the way. It's the date from which the payment was made. So let's say I have a billing cycle that ends on the 30th of every month, but I made a transaction on the 1st of the month and I have failed to make that payment. I'm a revolver, I'm carrying forward some of my balances. I will be charged from my interest will start accruing from the first of that month. And you all have heard of, very like how high the annualized percentage rate for credit card outstanding. It can go as high as 48%. So this entire interest income that is earned by these card issuers, that is the revenue that goes in for funding your credit card transactions. So literally, this study that was done by the Kellogg's professor, it showed that most of the lower income customers who are these revolving customers, they were funding per transacting customers, and typically these transacting customers were like the upper echelon of the economic strata in the US. They were funding per card holder 1,750 to $1,000 a year. I think, when I read this entire report, I felt it was just criminal what these credit card rewards are. That hasn't stopped me from using my credit card rewards, in case any of you want to ask that question. But no, I really feel bad for it over there. Does that mean that this entire Visa, Mastercard capping of the MDR is going to reduce reward programs? I really, really doubt it. So that's just my 2 cents on this entire topic. Again, opening up the floor, and I see my good old friend Abhishek is up on stage with us. Just giving you permission to join us. Abhishek and I have had, when I started doing these podcasts, I think about 2 years back, Abhishek used to be one of those people who used to always make me think a lot. So thank you so much, Abhishek, for joining us. For everyone else's benefit, Abhishek, please do give us a brief intro, and I'm so glad to have you up on stage again.
Sure. This is Abhishek Malka, and I work for HSBC, and I have around 17 years of banking experience, and I have interest in the fintech and credit cards, especially. So this space is of my interest, and just Kamalika, as she was just saying that it's the revolvers who are actually funding the transactions for others, or the reward points. It's not only the revolvers, but the people who are actually using the debit cards or paying
Oh,
in cash.
yes. Oh, yes.
So they are also funding the people who are, because and the shopkeeper, or the merchant will always jack up their prices
Oh,
to
yes.
cover the costs which they have to pay to the credit card companies as the MDR. So whoever is not using the credit card is effectively subsidizing the cost for the credit card user.
So true.
And as far as the Rupay part is concerned, I think Rupay card normally have a very low reward kind of stuff. There is no, I have not heard any premium premium card on Rupay
There
at this
isn't
point
yet,
of
yeah.
time, because banks
really do not make much of the money, and the better ones are actually co-branded cards on Rupee
Yeah,
at this point of time.
true.
So there's no standalone Rupee card which gives you much of rewards per se. But then yes, the Rupee cards are credit cards are really working because you can just link them to UPI, and even if
Correct.
you want to pay 20 rupees to a shopkeeper for a chai, then you can just pay through credit card on the scan and pay.
Yeah, that's I think one of the biggest adoption drivers that's out there for the Rupee credit cards. But Abhishek, I loved your point on the entire, and I don't know how it skipped my mind, but yes, people are paying in cash at the checkout terminal. The merchant currently, even in the US, is not really discriminating, right? And saying, ki, oh, you're paying in cash, so I will give you your 2% extra discount that I would have had to pay to my credit card network in anyways. So that was a superb point, Abhishek. Thanks for that.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. I think that's all I had for today. Do let me know if you guys would want like a deep dive into the various ways that Visa and MasterCard make money. Because when I was going through Visa's annual report, I figured that card processing is not their only source anymore. And well, yes, that was a surprise for me. But yes, if you guys want a deep dive on that, I would love to kind of take all of you through that as well. And we'll probably do like a entire session on just going through some of their annual reports and some picking out some of those points as well. But that's it for today, and I'm so glad all of you did join me up on stage because I had a wonderful conversation with all of you. The insights that all of you brought up was amazing. I do hope that so I have tried recording this entire conversation and I hope it's recorded it properly. I will share the links with all of you because I think all of you have given me just so much of food for thought that yes, I couldn't have done this without you also. Thanks once again and have a great rest of the evening, rest of the week, wherever you're tuning in from. Bye, everyone.